Welcome back to another video, and today we've got an interesting one because there's so much talk about new taxes. There's talk about lowering taxes, raising taxes, people leaving the state for taxes. As someone who considers themselves of maybe a libertarian slant, someone who doesn't like the government imposing more taxes, someone who doesn't like to pay taxes and doesn't like the government putting their hands in certain areas where I don't think they should be, I had to ask myself the question, what are these taxes being spent on? So today we're going to dive deep into that, but first we got to hit that thumbs up button below because that does help me out, and I do notice you guys that show up to the videos early and you guys hit that thumbs up button. I want to hit you guys with some interesting facts before we get started. Of every tax dollar that you contribute, 0.3% goes to the EPA, 0.7% goes to nukes, or maintaining our nuclear arsenal. The amount that we spend on nukes is the same amount that we spend on K through 12 education. 1.5 cents goes to Lockheed Martin. 0.75 cents goes to Boeing. So that means that we spend the same amount on nukes as we do on K through 12 education, and that means that we spend twice as much on Lockheed Martin as we do on K through 12 education. And that means that we spend 4 times as much on Lockheed Martin as we spend on the environment. Another interesting fact about that 0.75 cents that's going to Boeing is that Patrick Shanahan, the old Secretary of Defense appointed by Donald Trump in 2019, used to be an executive at Boeing. Interesting fact there. The average American tax bill was $14,285, and the average American tax rate was 29.8%. And with those numbers, you can do some interesting math, because once you know the tax rate that an average American paid and then you know the amounts that the tax rate represented, you can determine exactly how much time you spent working for these different departments of the government. Here's one that people love to put down, and it is the SNAP program. And that one, on average, every American put in $326 of their own money, and that would be about 2.2% of tax revenue. Or in other words, if you were to convert that into time spent at the job, that is 0.65% of your time spent at the job. Or in other words, if you were to convert that into actually minutes and seconds, that would be 3 minutes and 7.2 seconds. Anyways, those are the ones that I thought were interesting, but let's get into these bigger, broader categories, and then we'll close out the video. I just thought that those were interesting. I will link in the description below the whole article so that you can go dig through it, and maybe you'll find some more things that you find are more interesting than the things that I've presented. But first, we're going to get into Medicare and Medicaid, CHIP, which is Children's Health Insurance Program, and marketplace subsidies, which is less than 1% of the government's budget. But basically those are like for farmers. Farmers have subsidies. For different things like oil has subsidies. They're different industry subsidies. So for all of that stuff, it is 25% of the budget goes to healthcare and goes to those subsidies. So the breakdown of that is about 12.9% Medicaid and about 11.4% Medicare. And then the rest, that a little bit under 1%, is subsidies. All right, so Social Security, 23%. So Social Security provided about $1 trillion in aid to 45 million retired workers. It provided benefits to about 3 million spouses and children of retired workers. It provided benefits to approximately 6 million surviving children and spouses. It provided benefits to approximately 6 million surviving children and spouses of deceased workers. And it provided aid to approximately 10 million disabled workers and their spouses and eligible dependents as of December 2019. The average benefit provided was $1,503. Now, I do understand the benefit of the Social Security program, and I understand that it's very important that most people have the Social Security program. If we actually take the market value according to the 4% rule, it depends on what interest rates you assume, but if you took it at the 4% rule, the market value currently is $450,000. If you were able to make $50,000 a year and take that 12%, that 12.4%, and invest it instead, it would turn into $1.91 million if you were to invest that at 8% for 40 years. Or in other words, it's a difference of $1.466 million. But we cannot discount the fact that it provides the aforementioned benefits for those who are disabled, for those who are surviving spouses, and those who are not able to work anymore. Defense and international security. So in other words, the military and the activities employees of the Department of Defense. And one interesting thing that I found about this was that the military spends approximately 12 cents on private contractors for every 4.8 cents it spends on the actual military, so the actual soldiers, Marines, sailors, coasties. Did I forget somebody? Nah, I didn't forget anybody. I'm just kidding, Air Force. So I thought that was interesting that for every 12 cents that they spend on private contractors, they also spend 4.8 cents on the actual military personnel ourselves. 8% goes to safety net programs. So in other words, the earned income tax credit. It also is things like unemployment insurance, things that basically keep people out of poverty if they've hit hard times. So these are very important programs, things to get people back on their feet, things that help, as they said in the article, raise people out of poverty, help them raise to a basic standard of living. Programs in this category help with things like living expenses, they help with things like keeping the lights on, energy bills, things like making sure that you can have some food, making sure that children can have childcare, and things of that nature. Without this program, the poverty rate would have been 24% without the extra cash injections by this program, as opposed to the actual 12.8% that it was with the additional cash that was provided by this program. All right, moving on along. 8% is what we spend on the interest on the national debt. So this is where I get a little bit, this is my favorite one, right? Because where interest rates are right now, if they were to spike and all of the debt rolled over into a 16% interest rate, this is assuming that the US national debt, which it's at, last time I checked, 23 million. If it was at 23 million and all of the debt got rolled into a 16% loan, all of the tax revenue of the entire US would not be able to cover that debt. So that's why they are pegging the interest rate so low. It's because when the US has all of this debt, if interest rates go up, we're not going to be able to cover our debt. We're not going to be able to pay back our debt. And essentially, everything comes crumbling down. So everything's going to be okay. Maybe. But anyways, let's get into the last ones of the day and then we're going to close out the video. So benefits for federal employees. This one is up to 8%. This one actually has gone up during Donald Trump's presidency. From all the data that I can see, it's gone up to get itself up to 8%. 2% is spent on transportation and infrastructure. We heard Joe Biden talk about how he wants to increase the expenses on transportation and infrastructure to provide jobs. 2% is spent on education. 2% is spent on science and research. 1% is spent on non-security international, or in other words, foreign aid and all these other programs where we're going internationally, and 4% is spent on other. So anyways, hopefully you guys like this video. I hope you guys found some of the tips, interesting facts, entertaining, insightful, interesting. Hopefully it helps you guys guide yourself through this process that we're all going through. And tomorrow, or whenever I'm able to get it out, I'm going to be going over how to avoid Joe Biden's new taxes. And just to give you guys a quick preview of that video, there's this funny thing about taxes that are easy to get around. No one pays them. You look at history, no one pays them. So anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video.